Good evening, and welcome back to Sleeping with the Stars, where we explore the fascinating lives of history's most remarkable figures through gentle storytelling designed to ease you into peaceful slumber. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the extraordinary life of a man whose wild hair and twinkling eyes became as iconic as his revolutionary ideas. Albert Einstein, a name that conjures images of blackboards filled with elegant equations, a mind that could peer into the very fabric of space and time, and yet, beneath it all, a deeply human soul who played the violin, sailed boats on quiet lakes, and pondered the mysteries of existence with the wonder of a child. His was a life that began in the gentle hills of southern Germany and would eventually reshape our understanding of reality itself. What makes Einstein's story so captivating is not merely his scientific genius, but the beautiful contradiction of his character, a man who could unlock the secrets of the universe while remaining endearingly absent-minded, who could conceive of relativity while finding solace in the simple act of playing Mozart on his beloved violin. Tonight, we'll walk beside him through patent offices and lecture halls, through moments of profound discovery and quiet contemplation, as we uncover the human heart that beat within one of history's greatest minds. Before we embark on tonight's journey, I invite you to show your appreciation by gently tapping the like button if you're enjoying our content. Consider subscribing to join our growing community of nighttime storytellers and dreamers. In the comments below, we'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the globe. There's something magical about knowing we're all connected through these shared moments of tranquility. Feel free to suggest which remarkable lives you'd like us to explore in future episodes. Now, as we prepare to begin, dim your lights, settle beneath your covers, perhaps turn on that gentle fan or white noise that helps you drift away, and let us guide you through the extraordinary life of one of history's greatest minds. The Dawn of Wonder. On March 14th, 1879, in the medieval city of Ulm, Germany, a child was born who would one day teach humanity to see the universe with new eyes. Albert Einstein entered the world into a family that valued both intellectual curiosity and gentle humor. His father, Hermann, was passionate about mathematics and engineering, while his mother, Pauline, brought warmth and musical appreciation to their household. The Einstein family home was filled with soft piano melodies and intellectual conversation. Hermann and his brother, Jakob, had established an electrical engineering company, and young Albert often found himself surrounded by the quiet buzz of innovation. It was here that the seeds of curiosity were first planted. Albert was a contemplative child, often lost in thought, his dark eyes reflecting unusual depth. His parents noticed he was slower to speak than other children, preferring to observe the world with intense concentration rather than fill the air with chatter. When he did form words, they came with careful consideration, as if each sentence had been weighed in his developing mind. Young Albert's first encounter with wonder came through a simple magnetic compass given to him at age 5 during an illness. The way the needle persistently pointed north, regardless of how he turned the instrument, filled him with profound mystery. Here was an invisible force acting across empty space, his first glimpse into the universe's hidden machinery. His sister Maya became his closest companion and confidant. She later recalled how Albert could sit for hours building elaborate structures, his face showing intense concentration. Even as a child, he approached play with the methodical patience that would characterize his scientific work. The arrival of his violin at age 6 marked another pivotal moment. Under his mother's guidance, he explored the mathematical beauty within Mozart's compositions. The violin became more than an instrument. It bridged the logical and lyrical, expressing emotions his careful words could not capture. Throughout his life, when theoretical physics threatened to overwhelm him, Albert would retreat to his violin. School presented unique challenges for the introspective boy. The rigid German educational system seemed designed to stifle his natural curiosity. Teachers demanded rote memorization and unquestioning obedience, values that conflicted with his inclination to probe and question. Despite these challenges, Albert's gifts could not be hidden. By age 12, he had taught himself algebra and geometry, finding in mathematics a language that spoke to his soul with perfect clarity. The forging of a mind. As Albert entered adolescence, the gentle currents of childhood encountered the turbulent waters of formal education. The Luitpold Gymnasium in Munich represented everything his questioning mind found constraining. The school's emphasis on military-style discipline and memorization felt restrictive to a boy whose thoughts naturally wandered into realms of abstract possibility. During these challenging years, Albert developed the independent thinking that would define his career. While classmates dutifully recited lessons, he found himself drawn to forbidden questions. What would it be like to ride alongside a beam of light? These weren't textbook questions, but they blazed through his consciousness with demanding intensity. When his family's business struggles forced them to move to Italy in 1894, 15-year-old Albert made a destiny-shaping decision. Rather than remain in Munich to complete his education, he chose to leave the gymnasium and join his family, an act of independence that revealed the courage characterizing his entire life. The months in Italy were transformative. Away from oppressive German education, Albert flourished in the warm Mediterranean climate and relaxed Italian culture. He wandered through ancient cities, absorbing art and architecture, engaging with locals who welcomed his curious questions. The experience taught him that learning could be joyful, that education was exploration rather than indoctrination. His initial failure at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic entrance examination led to a blessing, a year at the cantonal school in Aarau, where progressive Swiss methods allowed his gifts to bloom. For the first time, he encountered teachers who encouraged questions and celebrated original thinking. Living with the Winteler family provided Albert with his first taste of a harmonious home environment. Jost Winteler embodied the educator Albert had always longed for. Patient, encouraging, deeply committed to collaborative learning. During this period, Albert also experienced his first romantic stirrings with Marie Winteler, learning valuable lessons about the interplay between intellectual and emotional intimacy. His successful admission to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in 1896 marked a new chapter. Zurich was cosmopolitan, filled with students bringing diverse perspectives. The atmosphere was intoxicating. Cafe discussions stretching deep into night, friendships forged over shared passions, professors treating students as junior colleagues rather than subordinates. Among fellow students, Albert found kindred spirits sharing his passion for pushing beyond conventional boundaries. Marcel Grossman became particularly close, someone who could match Albert's intensity while providing practical guidance. Their friendship was built on mutual respect and shared conviction that the universe held secrets waiting for discovery. Even in this liberating environment, Albert's independent nature sometimes clashed with professors. He tended to skip boring lectures, preferring library exploration or personal investigations. This frustrated teachers, but allowed him to develop the self-directed learning style, serving him throughout his career. As Polytechnic years concluded, Albert faced uncertain transition from student to professional scientist. Little did he know that his most profound discoveries would emerge not from prestigious university appointments, but from quiet hours stolen between patent office duties. The miracle years. The Swiss Patent Office in Bern seemed an unlikely launching pad for revolutionary insights. Yet here, Albert Einstein would perform intellectual alchemy that forever changed our conception of reality. In 1902, the young graduate, unable to secure an academic position, accepted this civil service role with quiet determination. The work was methodical, examining patent applications for electromagnetic devices and mechanical contraptions. Each required careful analysis and the ability to spot flaws in reasoning. For Albert, these exercises kept his analytical mind sharp while leaving his deeper consciousness free to wander through fundamental questions haunting him since childhood. His colleague, Michel Bessot, became an invaluable sounding board. Their long walks along the Aar River became laboratories for testing ideas. Bessot possessed the rare gift of patient listening, asking the right questions at crucial moments, helping Albert clarify thoughts that might otherwise have remained tangled. The patent office routine provided unexpected rhythm. Mornings were devoted to examining applications, but afternoons often brought lighter workloads, allowing personal study. Albert would pull worn physics journals from his desk drawer, losing himself in the latest developments, while his supervisor, recognizing his competence and discretion, rarely interfered. During spring 1905, the miracle began unfolding. Albert had been wrestling with light's behavior and its relationship to electromagnetic fields. Classical physics suggested light waves required a medium for travel, but experimental evidence pointed toward a disturbing conclusion. Light seemed to propagate through empty space with perfect consistency. The breakthrough came during contemplative walks through Bern's ancient streets. He imagined himself traveling alongside a light beam, moving at the same speed as electromagnetic waves. Classical physics suggested he should see the light wave frozen in space, but Maxwell's equations insisted electromagnetic waves could not exist in a stationary state. This paradox demanded a radical solution. The answer was breathtakingly simple and profoundly revolutionary. Light speed was constant for all observers, regardless of their motion. This seemingly innocent principle carried explosive implications. If light always traveled at the same speed, then space and time themselves must be flexible, stretching and contracting to accommodate this cosmic speed limit. Working through mathematical implications during quiet evenings, Albert discovered that time was not Newton's universal constant. A clock moving at high speed would tick more slowly than a stationary one. Distances would contract in the direction of motion. Mass and energy were revealed as different aspects of the same fundamental property, related by the elegant equation E equals mc squared. His paper on special relativity, submitted to Annalen der Physik in June 1905, bore the modest title On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies. The language was precise but understated, giving little hint of the revolution contained within. Albert had rewritten fundamental physics laws with quiet confidence. But 1905 wasn't finished with miracles. Earlier that year, Albert tackled the photoelectric effect puzzle. When light struck certain metals, it ejected electrons with energies depending not on light's intensity, but on its frequency. Classical wave theory couldn't explain this, but Albert proposed a radical solution. Light itself consisted of discrete energy packets, later called photons. His third major contribution examined the seemingly random motion of tiny particles suspended in liquid, Brownian motion. By applying statistical mechanics, Albert provided compelling evidence for atoms and molecules' existence, entities still controversial among some scientists. 3 papers within months, each sufficient to establish a scientific reputation. Yet Albert continued his patent office routine with characteristic humility. He knew he had glimpsed something profound about reality's nature, but understood these insights were just the beginning of a much larger journey. His marriage to Mileva Maric in 1903 had brought companionship and intellectual partnership. Mileva, a brilliant physicist herself, provided both emotional support and mathematical expertise during his theory's development. Their small apartment became a sanctuary where domestic routine and cosmic speculation coexisted harmoniously. The birth of their son Hans Albert in 1904 added new dimensions to Einstein's world. Fatherhood brought its own revelations, watching a young mind discover the world, balancing professional ambition with family devotion. As he held his infant son, Albert must have contemplated the universe this new generation would inherit, forever changed by insights emerging from a modest patent office in Bern. Ascending to greatness, rise to fame and scientific recognition. The transformation from patent clerk to international celebrity unfolded gradually, like a gentle sunrise illuminating the scientific community's understanding of Einstein's profound contributions. In the years following 1905, Albert's revolutionary papers began rippling through universities across Europe, carried by whispered conversations among physicists, recognizing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Max Planck, the distinguished German physicist, was among the first to grasp the full significance of Einstein's work. His enthusiastic endorsement carried enormous weight, and slowly other prominent figures began taking notice. The young patent clerk's ideas were no longer curiosities, but fundamental insights demanding serious consideration. The development of general relativity began during these transitional years, emerging from what Albert called the happiest thought of my life. While sitting in the patent office one day in 1907, he realized that a person falling freely would not experience their own weight. This simple observation opened a doorway to understanding gravity, not as a force, but as curvature in the fabric of space and time itself. The mathematics required proved extraordinarily challenging, pushing Albert beyond his polytechnic education he turned to his old friend, Marcel Grossman, now a mathematics professor, for guidance in differential geometry and tensor calculus. Their collaboration became a beautiful example of scientific friendship, combining Albert's physical intuition with Marcel's mathematical expertise. Academic recognition arrived in 1908 when Albert was offered a position as private docent at the University of Bern, allowing him to teach while maintaining patent office duties. The offer of a full professorship at the University of Zurich in 1909 marked his final departure from the patent office. As he cleaned out his desk, Albert must have reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun in that modest building. His return to academic life brought new challenges. Teaching required him to articulate ideas with greater precision, finding ways to convey revolutionary concepts to minds trained in classical physics. His students were often bewildered by his unconventional approach, but those who persevered discovered a professor unlike any other, one who encouraged questions and approached even his own theories with humility. The years leading to 1915 were marked by intense struggle as Albert worked to complete general relativity. The mathematics was formidable, the conceptual leaps enormous. He was attempting to describe gravity as four-dimensional space-time curvature, a concept so removed from everyday experience that even he sometimes wondered if it could be correct. The breakthrough came in November 1915 during lectures at the Prussian Academy in Berlin. Albert had moved to the German capital the previous year, drawn by a research position, allowing him to focus entirely on theoretical work. As he presented his field equations, he knew he was offering a fundamentally new picture of reality. The immediate test came through Mercury's orbital behavior. For decades, astronomers had noticed a slight deviation in Mercury's orbit, unexplainable by Newton's gravitational theory. When Albert applied his equations to the problem, they yielded exactly the observed deviation. The moment he completed the calculation, he knew with absolute certainty that general relativity was correct. But the ultimate validation would come from an even more dramatic prediction: that massive objects would bend light's path. This effect would be most easily observed during a solar eclipse, when stars near the sun's edge became visible. Albert calculated exactly how much starlight should be deflected, knowing this prediction would make or break his theory. The Great War intervened, making necessary astronomical observations impossible. But in 1919, as Europe began healing, two British expeditions set out to observe a total solar eclipse, one to Principe off West Africa, the other to Sobral in Brazil. Arthur Eddington, a distinguished astrophysicist, led this scientific adventure, understanding Einstein's predictions' profound implications. When the telegraph arrived in London announcing that observed deflection matched Einstein's calculations precisely, the scientific world erupted in excitement. The Times proclaimed "Revolution in Science" in headlines, capturing public imagination. Almost overnight, Albert Einstein became the world's most famous scientist, his wild hair and thoughtful eyes appearing on newspaper front pages globally. The Nobel Prize in Physics, awarded in 1921 for his photoelectric effect explanation, provided official recognition of his contributions. Characteristically, Albert was traveling when the announcement was made, continuing his pattern of being slightly detached from honors others found significant. For him, the real reward had always been the moment of insight, when the universe revealed another secret. The eclipse expedition had transformed Einstein from respected scientist into global icon, but it also marked the beginning of a new phase. No longer could he work in quiet solitude. The world now demanded his attention, opinions, and presence. The gentle rhythm of contemplation characterizing his early career was about to be replaced by the more complex cadences of international fame. Total solar eclipse, one to the island of Príncipe off the coast of West Africa, the other to Sobral in Brazil. The leader of this scientific adventure was Arthur Eddington, a distinguished astrophysicist who understood the profound implications of Einstein's predictions. When the telegraph arrived in London announcing that the observed deflection matched Einstein's calculations precisely, the scientific world erupted in excitement. The Times of London proclaimed "Revolution in Science" in headlines that captured the public imagination. Almost overnight, Albert Einstein became the most famous scientist in the world, his wild hair and thoughtful eyes appearing on newspaper front pages across the globe. The Nobel Prize in Physics, awarded to him in 1921 for his explanation of the photoelectric effect, provided official recognition of his contributions to human knowledge. Characteristically, Albert was traveling when the announcement was made, continuing his pattern of being slightly detached from the honors that others found so significant. For him, the real reward had always been the moment of insight, the instant when the universe revealed another of its secrets. The eclipse expedition of 1919 had transformed Einstein from a respected scientist into a global icon, but it had also marked the beginning of a new phase in his life. No longer could he work in quiet solitude. The world now demanded his attention, his opinions, his presence at conferences and celebrations. The gentle rhythm of contemplation that had characterized his early career was about to be replaced by the more complex cadences of international fame, the heart behind the mind. Behind the equations and theories, beyond the public persona that captivated the world, Albert Einstein remained fundamentally human, a man who struggled with love, loss, and the delicate balance between intellectual pursuit and emotional connection. His personal relationships, marked by both deep affection and painful separation, revealed a complexity that mirrored the paradoxes he explored in physics. His first marriage to Mileva Maric had begun with the promise of both romantic and intellectual partnership. They had met as fellow students at the Polytechnic, sharing a passion for physics and mathematics that seemed to transcend conventional boundaries. Mileva was one of the few women pursuing advanced studies in physics, and her intelligence and determination had attracted Albert from their earliest encounters. Their correspondence during the early years of their relationship reveals a tender intimacy mixed with shared scientific enthusiasm. Albert would write to her about his latest insights, seeking not just emotional support, but genuine intellectual engagement. Mileva, for her part, contributed to his mathematical calculations and provided the kind of rigorous analysis that helped refine his developing theories. The birth of their daughter Liesel in 1902, before their marriage, created both joy and complication in their lives. The social conventions of the time made an unmarried birth scandalous, and the fate of their first child remains one of the mysteries of Einstein's personal life. Some evidence suggests that Liesel may have been given up for adoption or may have died in infancy, leaving a shadow of sorrow that would subtly influence their relationship for years to come. Their sons, Hans Albert and Eduard, brought different dimensions to Albert's understanding of fatherhood. Hans Albert, born in 1904, inherited his father's intellectual curiosity along with a more practical engineering mindset. Albert delighted in their conversations, particularly as Hans Albert grew older and could engage with increasingly sophisticated ideas. Their relationship remained strong throughout Albert's life, providing him with one of his most enduring sources of personal satisfaction. Edward, born in 1910, proved to be more emotionally fragile, eventually developing mental health challenges that caused Albert profound anguish. The helplessness he felt in the face of his younger son's illness revealed a side of Einstein that few people ever saw. The loving father who would have gladly exchanged all his scientific achievements for his child's well-being. As Albert's career flourished and international recognition grew, the strains on his marriage with Mileva became increasingly apparent. His frequent travels, his absorption in theoretical work, and perhaps most significantly, his growing attachment to his cousin Elsa created distances that proved impossible to bridge. The divorce, finalized in 1919, was handled with characteristic dignity by both parties, but it left emotional scars that would influence Albert's approach to relationships for the rest of his life. His marriage to Elsa later that same year represented a different kind of partnership. Where his relationship with Mileva had been built on shared intellectual passion, his connection with Elsa was founded on complementary strengths. Elsa understood the demands of genius and was content to provide the domestic stability that allowed Albert to pursue his work without distraction. She managed his correspondence, organized his schedule, and protected him from the intrusions of fame with fierce devotion. The household that Elsa created became a sanctuary where Albert could retreat from the pressures of public life. She understood his need for solitude, his tendency toward absent-mindedness, and his deep dependence on routine. Their home became a gathering place for other intellectuals, musicians, and artists, creating the kind of stimulating environment that nourished Albert's creativity. His friendships during this period reveal another facet of his character, the man who could engage equally comfortably with fellow scientists and with musicians, writers, and philosophers. His correspondence with figures like Sigmund Freud, Rabindranath Tagore, and Charlie Chaplin showed a mind that refused to be confined to any single discipline. These relationships provided outlets for aspects of his personality that pure science could not fully satisfy. The friendship with Michel Bessot, which had begun during the patent office years, continued throughout their lives as a testament to the power of intellectual companionship. Bessot served as Albert's confidant, sounding board, and occasionally his conscience, providing the kind of honest feedback that fame often makes difficult to obtain. Their correspondence, spanning decades, reveals a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Music remained one of Albert's most reliable sources of solace throughout his adult life. His violin, which he playfully named Lena, was his constant companion. Whether working through a difficult theoretical problem or seeking relief from personal stress, he would turn to Bach or Mozart for restoration. Fellow musicians who played with him noted his technical limitations, but praised his deep emotional connection to the music, his ability to find in melody what words could not express. His relationship with his stepdaughters, Elsa's children from her previous marriage, added another layer of complexity to his domestic life. Margot and Ilse Einstein brought youthful energy to the household, and Albert found unexpected joy in his role as stepfather. His letters to them reveal a playful, affectionate side that contrasted sharply with his serious public image. The loss of Elsa to illness in 1936 marked one of the most difficult periods in Albert's personal life. Her death left him feeling isolated and adrift, struggling to maintain the routines that had sustained his work. The grief was compounded by his growing concern for Eduard's mental health and the increasing political tensions in Europe that threatened so many people he cared about. In his later years, particularly after moving to Princeton, Albert's personal relationships took on a different character. He formed close friendships with neighbors and colleagues, but there was a quality of gentle detachment that suggested a man who had learned to protect his emotional core from further injury. His housekeeper, Helen Dukas, became an essential part of his life, managing his affairs with devotion and discretion that allowed him to focus on his continuing scientific work. The correspondence that survived from his final decades reveals a man who had achieved a kind of philosophical peace with the complexities of human relationship. He wrote with warmth and humor to friends and colleagues, offered comfort to those facing their own struggles, and maintained his commitment to causes he believed in. But there was also a sense of someone who had learned to find fulfillment primarily within himself and his work. Perhaps most poignantly, his relationship with his granddaughter Evelyn provided some of the uncomplicated joy that had sometimes been missing from his more complex adult relationships. In her, he could see the wonder and curiosity that had driven his own childhood, and their time together reminded him of the simple pleasures that even the most extraordinary lives could offer. The final journey, the move to Princeton, New Jersey in 1933, marked the beginning of Albert Einstein's final chapter, a period characterized by both profound scientific inquiry and deep engagement with the moral questions of his time. The Institute for Advanced Study, nestled in the quiet suburban landscape of New Jersey, provided him with the perfect environment for contemplation, far removed from the political turmoil of Europe, yet close enough to remain engaged with the world's struggles. His small office at the Institute became a sanctuary where he could pursue what he called his unified field theory, an ambitious attempt to find a single mathematical framework that would unite gravity and electromagnetism. This quest consumed much of his intellectual energy during his Princeton years, driven by his deep conviction that the universe possessed an underlying simplicity that human reason could ultimately comprehend. The work was extraordinarily challenging, requiring him to venture into mathematical territories that few physicists had explored. Day after day, he would fill blackboards with equations, searching for the elegant connections that would reveal the fundamental unity he was certain existed. His assistant, Leopold Infeld, later wrote movingly about watching Einstein work. The intense concentration, the moments of apparent breakthrough, followed by the recognition of subtle errors, the patient persistence that characterized his approach to the most difficult problems. Yet even as he pursued these abstract investigations, Albert remained deeply connected to the world beyond his office. The rise of fascism in Europe had transformed him from a pacifist into a reluctant advocate for military preparedness, a change that caused him considerable anguish. His letter to President Roosevelt in 1939, warning of the possibility that Germany might develop atomic weapons, demonstrated his willingness to set aside personal convictions when confronted with existential threats to human freedom. The development of the atomic bomb, partly inspired by his famous equation E equals mc squared, became a source of profound ambivalence for Albert. While he understood the necessity of ensuring that democratic nations possessed these weapons before totalitarian regimes, he was haunted by their destructive potential. His later advocacy for nuclear disarmament and international control of atomic weapons reflected his deep sense of responsibility for the unintended consequences of his theoretical insights. His daily routine in Princeton took on a comforting regularity. Morning walks to the institute, often accompanied by conversations with colleagues or students who were honored to share his journey. Hours spent in his office, working through calculations with the methodical patience that had characterized his entire career. Afternoons that might include sailing on Lake Carnegie, his small boat providing the same sense of peaceful contemplation that he had found in his violin. The loss of lifelong friends began to cast shadows over these later years. Michel Besso's death in 1955 prompted one of Albert's most poignant reflections on mortality and friendship. In a letter to Besso's family, he wrote that his old friend had preceded me briefly in bidding farewell to this strange world. This means nothing. People like us who believe in physics know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. His correspondence during this period reveals a man who had achieved a kind of philosophical serenity while maintaining his passionate engagement with fundamental questions. Letters to fellow scientists contain detailed discussions of theoretical problems, while communications with friends and family showed his continued warmth and humor. He wrote regularly to his granddaughter, offering gentle advice and sharing observations about the natural world with the same wonder that had characterized his childhood. The continuing mystery of quantum mechanics provided another focus for his intellectual energy. His famous debates with Niels Bohr about the nature of reality had evolved into a more general critique of quantum theory's probabilistic interpretation. Albert's conviction that God does not play dice with the universe reflected his deep belief in causality and determinism, principles that seemed threatened by the strange world of quantum phenomena. His scientific isolation during these years was both self-imposed and circumstantial. Many younger physicists had moved on to explore quantum mechanics and nuclear physics, fields that held less appeal for Albert than the grand unification he continued to pursue. Yet this solitude also allowed him to think deeply about foundational questions that others might have considered too abstract or philosophical. The celebration of his 70th birthday in 1949 brought tributes from around the world, recognition of his contributions not just to science, but to human culture more broadly. The festivities, while gratifying, also reminded him of his mortality and the limited time remaining to complete his theoretical quest. he redoubled his efforts to find the unified field theory, driven by an urgency that reflected both his advancing age and his conviction that the solution was tantalizingly close. His final years were marked by increasing frailty, but undiminished intellectual curiosity. Even during his last hospitalization, he asked for the papers containing his latest calculations, determined to continue his work until the very end. The nurses found him in his hospital bed, pencil in hand, still searching for the mathematical relationships that had eluded him for so many years. On April 18th, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away peacefully in his sleep at Princeton Hospital. He was 76 years old, his mind still engaged with the deepest mysteries of existence until his final breath. His last words, spoken in German to a nurse who did not understand the language, were lost forever. Perhaps a fitting end for a man whose greatest insights had often been difficult to translate into ordinary language. The impact of his passing reverberated around the world. Newspapers carried headlines mourning the loss of the century's greatest scientific mind, while colleagues and students shared memories of a man who had changed not just physics, but humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Yet perhaps the most fitting tribute was the continued work of the scientists he had inspired, carrying forward the torch of inquiry that he had held so brightly. His scientific legacy extended far beyond his own discoveries. The technologies that emerged from his insights, lasers, nuclear power, GPS systems, medical imaging devices, touched virtually every aspect of modern life. More importantly, his approach to scientific thinking, his willingness to question fundamental assumptions and follow logic wherever it might lead, became a model for generations of researchers. The Einstein field equations, carved into the stone of his grave marker, served as a permanent reminder of his greatest achievement: the recognition that space and time were not the fixed stage upon which the drama of physics played out, but active participants in the cosmic dance. General relativity had revealed a universe far stranger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined, a place where time could slow down, where space could bend, where matter and energy were revealed as different faces of the same fundamental reality. But beyond the equations and the theories, beyond the Nobel Prize and the international acclaim, Albert Einstein's most enduring legacy may have been his demonstration that wonder and rigorous thinking could coexist, that the universe was simultaneously more mysterious and more comprehensible than it appeared. He had shown that a single human mind, armed with nothing more than curiosity and mathematical tools, could peer into the very foundations of reality and emerge with insights that illuminated the cosmos. His approach to life, the balance between solitude and engagement, between abstract thought and practical concern, between scientific rationality and artistic sensitivity, offered a model for how to live thoughtfully in a complex world. The image of Einstein playing his violin after a day of theoretical calculations, or sailing his small boat while pondering the nature of space and time, suggested that the deepest understanding emerged not from pure intellect alone, but from the integration of all human faculties. The letters and writings he left behind revealed a man who never lost his sense of amazement at the natural world. Even in his final years, he could still be moved to wonder by a flower's structure, a sunset's colors, or a child's innocent question about the stars. This capacity for continued astonishment, preserved despite decades of the most sophisticated scientific analysis, may have been his greatest gift. The reminder that knowledge enhances rather than diminishes our appreciation of beauty. A gentle farewell to wonder. And so we come to the end of our journey through the extraordinary life of Albert Einstein, a man who taught us that the universe is far more wonderful than we had dared to imagine. From the curious child who marveled at a compass needle's mysterious behavior to the aging physicist still searching for the ultimate equation, his story reminds us that wonder is perhaps humanity's most precious gift. As you settle deeper into your pillows tonight, let your mind drift gently through the images we've shared. The young patent clerk working by lamplight, the professor explaining relativity to captivated students, the elderly scientist walking Princeton's quiet streets with his thoughts lost among the stars. Each moment in his life was a testament to the power of curiosity, the beauty of persistence, and the profound satisfaction that comes from seeking to understand our place in the cosmos. Einstein once wrote that the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. In those words, we find perhaps the perfect encapsulation of a life dedicated to exploring the unknown, while never losing reverence for the unanswerable. His legacy lives on not just in the technologies that emerged from his insights or the scientific principles that bear his name, but in the encouragement he offers to every human mind that looks up at the night sky and wonders what secrets might be waiting there. The equations fade now, the complex theories dissolving into the gentle rhythm of your breathing. What remains is the simple, profound truth that Einstein's life exemplified, that we live in a universe of infinite beauty and mystery, one that rewards patient observation and careful thought with moments of transcendent understanding. His wild hair and twinkling eyes, his beloved violin and his quiet contemplation all become part of the peaceful tapestry of memory that can carry you gently towards sleep. Let the wonder that drove his entire life become a gentle companion for your dreams tonight. In the quiet darkness, you too are part of the same cosmic story that fascinated him, made of stardust, governed by the same elegant laws, participating in the same magnificent dance of space and time. The universe that revealed its secrets to Einstein continues to unfold around you, patient and eternal, filled with mysteries that future generations will explore with the same sense of awe that guided his remarkable journey. Rest now in the knowledge that curiosity is never wasted, that questions are often more valuable than answers, and that wonder is a renewable resource that grows stronger with use. The gentle genius who changed our understanding of reality would, I think, be pleased to know that his story might serve as a lullaby, carrying thoughtful minds toward peaceful sleep, while dreams of infinite possibility dance behind closed eyes. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers through space and time. May your rest be as peaceful as Einstein's final slumber, and may you wake tomorrow with renewed appreciation for the extraordinary universe we all call home. You'll always sleep well when you're sleeping with the stars.